iPhone 13 Pro versus iPhone 13 Pro Max a year later. So we'll begin by talking about the experience with the body, the build, and the design. What you're really going to notice with the iPhone 13 Pro is that it feels heavier than something like an 11 Pro or something like even a 10s or the similar size phones before. The 13 Pro actually started to get over 200 grams. So even though this is a 6.1 inch phone, there was quite a bit of weight to this. Other than that, we are seeing stainless steel edges here on the Sierra Blue, very thick camera bump, and the camera really does stick out on the smaller phone because, you know, it's a smaller body and those camera lenses are huge. Overall, though, it still feels just as premium as the iPhone 13 Pro Max. Well, maybe slightly less because it's slightly less heavy, but that's just because of the physical dimensions. Now, with the 13 Pro Max, I do find it to be a little bit more acceptable that it's super heavy because it is a 6.7 inch display. And so what I would say is I kind of would rather have the 13 Pro be a little bit lighter. It does feel kind of weighty for that size. And this one, you just expect it. So it's kind of like more balanced across the body. It doesn't feel top heavy because, you know, it's just a larger device. So this one feels a little bit heavy up at the top. Now, both of these phones do kind of rock a little bit on table due to their camera bump nature, but if you got a case, you kind of fix that overall. I will say though that I did appreciate the size a little bit more of the 13 Pro Max for productivity based tasks. So if you are doing camera stuff or you're doing things that really require you to just see a bigger canvas or a bigger, you know, display, you're really going to enjoy this a little bit more. When I was reading the news and stuff like that, or even, you know, taking down notes and things of that nature, I really did enjoy the 13 Pro Max a little bit more than the 13 Pro. However, when I did start taking it out and about, I would feel this thing weighing down my shorts. You know what I'm talking about when you're going for a walk or whatever and you're wearing shorts. The thing just, it's a big device in there. This one a lot more portable and still able to get all those productivity tasks done. Also, I do understand that not everybody's hand is huge. I wouldn't say my hand is huge. I've said it before, but it's big enough, you know, to say like I don't got small hands. The iPhone 13 Pro Max and somebody's hands that are smaller will actually feel, from their perspective, pretty similar to a 13 Pro Max with someone with larger hands. So both of these phones technically are larger. It kind of just depends on your hand and what really fits into your lifestyle a little bit better. Overall, I would say for most people, the 13 Pro will be the much more comfortable choice, but the 13 Pro Max is the one that a lot of people will love for its, you know, video watching, you know, it's just the productivity of that size. And I say people who are on the go more will appreciate the 13 Pro. Over my time, I find that when you're just kind of like, you're in the car using it for GPS, it's fine. Or if you're just at home a lot using it all day, things like that, you'll really enjoy the 13 Pro Max. Or if it's your only device and you need that longer battery life, you'll really appreciate this as well. When it comes to the displays, I think I found the iPhone 13 Pro Max to be the more enjoyable panel. They both do have the glorious ProMotion display, which is super smooth. It's the smoothest I've seen on pretty much any, you know, device. There are devices that are quite smooth, but the way Apple does it, it's just the way they optimize the software along with their hardware. It's just super smooth. Like there's no glitch. The animations are just butter on both of them. But in terms of just usability of the display, I find both of them large enough to consume media and stuff like that. However, I do believe that the iPhone 13 Pro Max was the more enjoyable for especially video watching and things of that sort. When you are viewing photos, it's also a little bit larger in the viewfinder. Also, they both get about the same brightness and the same sharpness, so you're not going to see a big deal of difference there. I think it just comes down to, do you want that little bit more of a portable experience on the iPhone 13 Pro, or do you want the larger canvas for consuming media and doing more productivity based tasks on the iPhone 13 Pro Max? If I go over to, you know, Apple News again one more time, I want to show you a little bit more what I'm talking about. So you can see the text just looks smaller on the iPhone 13 Pro, and it just has a wider canvas here. Now both of them do support True Tone, so it'll adjust to the lighting in your room and it'll be able to kind of look easy on the eye. So I don't have an issue with the brightness. I will say the notch didn't impede on the content too much on the 13 Pro, but it is more noticeable because it's just shorter from the top to the bottom. So what I mean by that is that I actually was able to ignore the notch a little bit more on the iPhone 13 Pro Max, but still, I like to see those go away. That's why I'm excited about next month. Looking like Apple's gonna finally drop it all together and go with like a cutout little pill or something like that. We'll have to see. But overall, I would pick the 13 Pro Max a year later in terms of display. It's just a little bit more enjoyable, especially considering the price between these two is not too large. Now, I will say though, again, if you have smaller hands, that this display will still feel large to you, but this one is going to be the better heavy user kind of display, the iPhone 13 Pro Max. That goes for gaming, productivity tasks, media consumption. But the 13 Pro is also up to the job. It's just going to be a little bit more small. Now, the cool thing about both of these is that in terms of software, they get the same length of updates and they also get the same features. So unlike the 13, they don't have different camera setups. They have the same camera setups and software is identical. So it's really just down to the size. Now, in terms of the software experience, is there anything that's really different? Again, only one thing I notice is that it just feels like there's more space to put widgets and stuff like that. So if you're big on widgets, you might prefer the 13 Pro Max just because the Max does seem to allow more space. I mean, I don't think it technically allows more space, but it just looks more spread out, the widgets on the 13 Pro Max. So if I was you and you were really into widgets, like putting a lot of them on your screen, you might want the 13 Pro Max. Other than that, software is essentially identical on both of them. So no major issues, both super smooth. And both of these phones, this is why I called this one the king and this one perfect, didn't crash hardly ever. I literally cannot remember the last time these phones crashed on me or what app it was. iOS never crashed. It was really just applications that crashed. So flawless performance essentially most of the year. Okay, so in terms of performance, both of these phones were identical. They both have 6 gigabytes of RAM. It does have an Apple A15 Bionic on both of them. And you really don't notice this until you compare it to a similarly equipped Android device. You'll see just how smooth this thing really is in the day-to-day on both of these. It's actually so fast that I feel like it's faster than I could think of things to do on the phone. Like, it will always keep up no matter how fast. And I don't even care. I don't care if you're like, you know, on your phone and you're going really fast. Like, it will keep up with your really fast taps. I literally don't think you could think of something like to do on your phone faster than this phone can actually calculate what to do. That's how quick the A15 Bionic is. So I never felt that I was lacking in any performance ever, like not on any single thing for the whole year long. Even the touch response to your fingers feels a little bit more responsive than a lot of competitors out there, which is something I've always appreciated about the iPhone, and it gets even better with that ProMotion here. Another thing I noticed about ProMotion on these panels is that if you're using a MacBook Pro or an iPad Pro with those ProMotion displays, it feels very natural in the ecosystem to come back over here to your iPhone Pro series from those devices, as those displays are ProMotion as well. And it just feels like there's no jarring experience. And that's one of the great reasons I think that it was time for Apple to go ahead and put ProMotion on the iPhone. It really does pay off. So performance with the A15 Bionics, I just feel like it's so much ahead of the competition, it's ridiculous. So that just tells you all you need to know. If you're looking for one of these in performance, that's not going to be the deciding factor. They're both identical. I'm not going to go ahead and talk your ear off about cameras here. They're basically the same, 12 megapixels. They do have, you know, the ultra wides and things of that sort. They've been great. All I will say is that I did prefer the 13 Pro Max for video because you have a bigger video framing. I preferred the iPhone 13 Pro for photography because it's smaller and it's just more of a compact experience. Reminds me of like a little Sony camera because it's a little bit more that size. So if you're into photography, I think the Pro is probably the better option. It's more portable when you're out and about doing your photography. If you're setting up on a tripod or you're doing a lot of video taking, you want to really frame that thing, I think the Pro Max is the choice. In terms of results, we're not going to show those again. Watch my which one to buy video I did a year ago. That'll tell you more about what you need to know with that. But this one right here, pretty similar camera experience overall. Results are identical. Very strong camera. So battery life is an area that has really impressed me on both. One thing I wanted to say though is that low power modes on here actually turn off ProMotion and makes the experience kind of like doesn't look as good anymore. So I never used low power mode on either of these phones. But when I did use the iPhone 13 Pro, it constantly impressed me how long the battery could go for this size of a phone, even though it's in the 3000 range in terms of milliamp hours. The 13 Pro Max is 4352, so much better on the 13 Pro Max. These are some of the only iPhones out there that you could go off the charger, and no matter what you're doing, high brightness, high use, you can at least expect it to make it the whole entire day. Like, a lot of iPhones will die in the middle of the day. You need a charger quick. But I mean, it depends on your charging habits. If you don't charge, you're not going to have enough in the morning. But like, if you leave with 100, you're going to go a day, maybe a day and a half. Some people are even reporting they made it 3 days on these phones. Overall, very strong battery life. But I had to stick with the 13 Pro Max over the iPhone 13 Pro long term, because it definitely gave me a good amount more battery, like a couple hours every day. So both of them strong, but the 13 Pro Max wins it out here. And the charging speed was a little slower for the 13 Pro, 23 watts. Over here on the iPhone 13 Pro Max, 27 watts. Neither very fast, but you know, the 13 Pro Max a little bit quicker. A couple other things I want to mention briefly before we wrap it up. Audio was actually a little bit louder on the smaller 13 Pro. I don't know if that has to do with the body, just putting out audio from a smaller phone, but slightly louder, but it was only like by a very small amount. So pretty similar audio experience. Also, the phone calling experience on both of these was pretty solid as well. So you don't really have an issue with that. Even the reception was pretty strong on both devices. Something I wasn't able to say before, in addition to 5G performance, was really good. It does have very fast connections on Bluetooth, especially to Apple-based products, Beat headphones, AirPods, AirPods Max, some of the fastest connecting devices I've ever seen, even faster than some, other products where they connect to like an off-brand. For example, if you have an Android phone, you're connecting to some Sony headphones. The AirPods were faster to connect to these devices, things like that, as long as you're staying in that Apple ecosystem. And I also wanted to mention resale values. The resale value on these hold up very well. So if you want to offload this, I would probably, if you have these and you want the 14s, I would start getting rid of them now at that higher price before they come down in price. The iPhone 13 Pro and Pro Max are some of the best phones, maybe the best phones of the year in terms of these regular style phones. Are not foldables. Overall, they've held up incredibly well. And these are actually the most impressive iPhones I've ever used. And I think it all came down to the promotion, the better cameras, and the better battery life. They really knocked out the things that really improved the user experience. And you really feel that on these over even say the iPhone 11 Pro, the 12 Pro, and even the 12 Pro Max. So a lot of people say these are still great devices. They are, but they don't match up to these ones right here. So if you're looking to get one soon, I would wait it out to get a little bit of a cheaper price. If you're looking to sell them, do it before the 14 and you'll get a better deal on your sale. Thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you haven't already. Let me know what you got to say, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Nick here. Be sure to be well, and peace.